Hey, Quiet Warriors, how is everyone doing? Hopefully, everyone's had a good week as we go into our next episode of the Quiet Warrior podcast. I'm your host, Scott Stevens, Quiet Warrior 6. Somebody asked me why 6. It was actually my sister. She's like, why number 6? And so she didn't understand that that is the call sign or for the commander of a battalion. And so while we're not a battalion and I'm not a commander, I just like that title, Quiet Warrior 6. And so I've claimed it. But I'm excited. I'm always excited, right? I'm always like, hey, Quiet Warriors, this is what's going on, and things are happening. And but last week I spoke about Quiet Warriors and kind of what we're doing, like overcoming our challenges and things. But I came up with something almost uh during that podcast that stuck with me. Like I taught myself, I guess. But and I've been thinking about it a lot about, this quiet warrior journey and like who we are as quiet warriors and working towards being better men and becoming the best version of ourselves. And it's this, as I said it towards the end of the podcast, and it is what the quiet warrior group's about is first acceptance, like helping us as men accept ourselves for who we are. Like this is who we are, right? Um, these are the traits that we've been given. This is the type of person that we want to become. I'm going to get this light over here so it's a little bit lighter on my face. And like that's kind of who, like, accepting ourselves, like, hey, we're men and this is who we are as men, but then taking it to the next step and encouraging us to be our best selves, right? Just being a man by virtue of being a man doesn't make us good or bad, right? But encouraging ourselves to take on strong values and to fight for those things that are important and to take care of our families, those things that allow us to be good men, right? Encouraging us to be good men. So acceptance, encouragement, and then the third thing is accountability. And what I mean by accountability is a lot of times people get accountability wrong, at least in my mind. There's a lot of times accountability is like somebody on the outside holding us accountable, right? You're going to stop smoking or you're going to get this work done or putting you under the thumb, so to speak. But what I like to think about accountability is a personal thing. I'm responsible for myself. I'm responsible for the things that I'm in charge of, right? That I have responsibility for. And how those go, both good and bad, I'm responsible for that. And so being accountable for how well we do those things. And that's part of like that quiet warrior journey is going, from just acceptance to being accountable. And so I've been thinking about this and working out what that means. And like, could we even create like a course, like a quiet warrior course that would be like from acceptance to accountability that would help us become more accountable to ourselves, right? And maybe I'll work something like that out. I got some ideas. It just takes time, right? Like takes time and resources and stuff. And so, but I want you guys to kind of think about that. It's like, how well do you accept yourself, right? Like who you are as a person. How happy are you are with who you are? And I hope that you have some happiness in who you are, right? Like you're good. If you want to go into to religion or the Bible or whatever, we're created in God's image, no matter what, right? Like it says, men were created in the image of God. And so that's got to be worth something. But even like beyond that, like just things that you do, that you breathe, that you help, that you provide, that the litany of things that you do, but not just what you do, but who you are, the type of friend that you are, the type of attitude that you contain, and like just things like that. And then what you want to become, right? Our dreams. And sometimes I think as men, we let our dreams go sometimes, and maybe that's okay, right? Maybe that is part of maturing in some sense is that we or our dreams change, so to speak. Like I know, like growing up, even I had a dream, like I wanted to be in the special forces, right? I wanted to be in a special forces soldier. And then circumstances kind of changed in my life to where I was like, maybe that's not what I want. But it was a dream of mine, right? It was something that I was very interested in. And I only bring that up, it's not to be like, woe's me or anything like that, but that our dreams change. And sometimes we have to shelve our dreams, right? Because we've got to take care and see if we can set things up for our children's dreams to come true. And I think that's part of being a quiet warrior is is being able to understand that. But the point of all that is like that we can all strive to be going forward in our lives, to finding happiness. And those are things that you do. Like that's who you are. And I hope that you give yourself that grace, that you take some time to really recognize how good you really are. And I know you're probably like, gosh, this is really a touchy-feely, and it kind of is, but I think it's really important. It's something I've been working on the last month or so, is like just being nicer to myself, and even going back into my life of things that I'm embarrassed that I did, or embarrassed that I allowed to happen and stuff like that, and being kinder to myself, forgiving myself, so to speak. And it's what's crazy about doing that is like it's made my life better going forward. Like I don't feel so unstable. I feel more stable. I feel better and happier. And it's a hard thing to do. And sometimes like remembering some of those things that we did that we cringe about and stuff, but at the same time, like going back and like being like, that's, I did that, probably shouldn't have done that, but at the time maybe that's how I felt like I could do. I don't know. And I'm not making excuses for ourselves either. Like, if we did something we shouldn't have done, we should definitely acknowledge that. But there's that other piece of forgiving ourselves for it, right? Like forgiving ourselves so that um, we can move past it, and that we can live a good life. We don't want to hold ourselves hostage to any situation. So just something to think about. And like, I hope that you guys do that, because I've been working on it. It's not easy, it's difficult, but it's worth it. It's so much worth it, because then as you begin to like yourself, like who you are as a person, the more confidence that you have, the more the peace that you have, and the more likely you are to be liked by other people, like in if you have a relationship that you're in, your girlfriend, your wife, your kids, any relationship really, it begins to become easier and better, and you're willing to show more of yourself to them, which allows you to have more of a connection. At least I think so, right? Like I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a counselor, but it's just things that I've experienced as I've kind of tried to, be forgive myself and love myself a little bit more. But so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really interesting things like that. But I mean, coming back to that is like that acceptance is like accepting yourself, accepting who you are. Like, I mean, sometimes that might be like, for myself, I'm bald, right? Like I'm bald and I have to accept it. And even though there's times I'm like, man, I wish I wasn't bald. Or accepting myself as, in the physical condition that I'm in, right? Like I don't look like a cover model for GQ magazine or anything like that. But I'm happy with that. But then I think the next part is like encouraging ourselves to be better, right? Like there's things that we can improve on that's going to make our lives better. And and that takes priority, right? Like that takes prioritizing, not necessarily priority. It takes prioritizing of like what really is important to me. And I don't know about you guys, but one of the things I did last week actually, I took about an hour, and I sat down and I really kind of thought about my values, like what my values are, like what do I value in life? And I was really honest with myself, like really honest with myself, because there's always like the generic answers, right? That are the acceptable answers of like my family, helping others, things that that you would expect a good person to say, but like really like getting into our values of what we are thinking about and what's really important to us. It's hard sometimes for us to do that, because we do try to put other people before us and stuff, which I think that's normal, and I think that's good, but I think it's important for us to understand our personal values. And as I did that, really interesting, like the first thing, it was family. That was one of my number one value, was found family, and it is. And I think about my family all the time, both my children and my wife, and my parents, my mother-in-law, and both sides of my family and stuff like that. I do think about them, and like if, and I'm ready to drop at a moment's notice to go and help them. Like I hope that they understand that and that I've acted that way. But then, like the second value for me, really interesting, like as I really thought about it, is like, where do I spend a lot of my time thinking? And it was like financial security. right? Like making enough money to be financially secure was really important to me. And I can get into why and stuff like that, but like I won't. It's a little personal, but like, but that was a high value to me. Like as I thought about it, I was like, man, that I spent a lot of time thinking about financial security for my family, right? For myself and for my family. And that's a really high value. Like that factors into a lot of what I do in my decision making and in my choices and stuff. And then the third thing, and I'll just share with my top three values, is my health. Like I am very concerned about my health. I try to eat right. I'm not always good at it. I like ice cream a lot. I like cookies a lot. So I'm not perfectly, I don't eat perfect. I don't have a six pack or anything like that. And I probably put on a little bit too much weight, but I do think about my health. I try to exercise daily. I try to, I take vitamins, I sell vitamins, so I better take them, right? Like I take vitamins. Um, and I think about my health, am I healthy? Can I continue to move the way I like to move? Can I continue to do the things I like to do? And so I think a lot about it. And those came like, as I thought about it more and more, those are my top three values. Interestingly enough, some of you might, that are, a little more God fearing and stuff like that, might be, well, where's God fit in all of that? And you're probably right. Like God should probably be my top value. But you know what? To be honest, I think a lot about how I serve him and how my relationship with him as well. And so it's very valuable to me. But I guess I look at that as kind of like something that might be given, right? Like that it's there no matter what. Which then again, like, begs some other questions about, do I take it for granted? And I definitely don't do that. Um, but the point of that is like just sitting down and getting to know yourself, um, both acceptance wise, but then encouraging ourselves to become better, right? What are our values? And getting better at recognizing those values and then living to them. And so if like family is if like for myself or for yourself, if you're one of your highest values is family, like mine, how are you helping improve your family? Right? What are some of the things that you're doing? Same thing with like say financial security. Just again, you always choose my values, but what am I doing to ensure or build financial security for my family? That's really important to me. And then my health, what am I doing? Am I putting those, excuse me, gosh, priorities to building my health and making sure and maintaining my health? And so all of those things are like a part of that encouragement, like encouraging us to live into our values and to set goals to um to realize our values in a sense, or realize and to enhance how important and how strong they are to us. That didn't come out right. Like not necessarily how important they are, because obviously they're extremely important, but to live into those values better, right? Make time. If we really value our family, make time for our family, right? Make time for spending time with our kids, maybe spending individual time with our kids, which can be challenging. But like if we really value our family, then we prioritize that and live into that. And the same thing with financial security, figuring out like how to provide for our families maybe a little bit better. If we need to make more money, like that's something I've been thinking about, is like how can I make a little bit more money for my family, like so that we can have a little more financial security as inflation eats into like our living expenses and stuff. And then, but the last thing is accountability and being accountable. And the interesting thing about accountability is that accountability on the outside, it works. I'm not going to lie. It works. Somebody putting their thumb on you, or you putting your thumb on somebody else, it works. It works. There's no anybody, I dare to say that anybody that says it doesn't work has either doesn't know, as it does work, else we wouldn't do it. But how effective it works is where I think we get into that conversation, right? If it really, how effective is it? How long term? How sustainable it is? And I think that's really where the debate comes into. But again, like putting our thumb on ourselves, or forcing ourselves, or coercing ourselves, it works. It works, but it's not very effective, and it's not very sustainable, right? It doesn't really build. And so accountability, changing it a little bit to being accepting the responsibility and recognizing that it's yours or ours as an individual. And that is accountability. So some of you may know, but I coach a flag football team. Like my son plays flag football in the spring, and in the fall he plays tackle ball. But and in the spring he plays flag football, and I think he's a pretty good player. And so, but so this year we kind of got a chance to not necessarily select everybody on our team, but kind of get some of the kids we had played for us in the past. But this year I was like, look, guys, I am going to hold you a little more accountable. But then I was like, no, I'm going to teach you guys how to hold yourselves accountable. And what I mean by that is when you drop a pass, I don't want you to throw a fit. That's not being accountable. If you drop a pass, I want you to think to yourselves, you know what? I let my team down, right? I didn't accomplish what I needed to accomplish. How do I do that better next time? How do I improve myself so that I can fulfill my responsibility? And that's what accountability is like saying, look, I'm responsible for the outcome, right? I'm responsible for it, not somebody else, not doing this, but I'm responsible for it. And teaching my flag football team that, I think I'm hoping, like, it takes time, to reiterate these type of things where, because I'm like, I'm not going to yell at you for dropping a pass, right? I'm not going to but I will get after you at practice if it becomes like a trend, right? Because I know you can catch, but I want you to be like, why am I dropping this ball? Right? Like what's happening in my system, in my way of going after this, that I'm dropping this pass? Because I'm accountable, right? Like if the quarterback throws me the ball, I've got to catch the ball. And I think the same thing for us, and like in normal life is like, what are we accountable for? Like, taking care of our families, protecting our families, and holding ourselves accountable to it, being like, this is my life, and is this the life that I want? And being accountable, like, what can I change? This is the outcome that I'm getting. How can I change it to get a better outcome? Right? Like, how can I change the process and what's going on in my life to get the outcome that I want? And so there's thinking involved in it, right? There's like, okay, this is what I'm currently doing. What tweaks to this do I need to make? Like, again, coming back to my flag football example, like some of the kids, like, they catch like this because they got to square to the ball and catch it. But sometimes the ball's coming over their shoulder and they've just got to flip their hands and catch it like this, right? Because it's coming over their shoulder and it's a new skill and it's new to learn. And so, but recognizing that they need to learn it and that there's a learning process to it. So that's holding them accountable, right? That they're practicing it, that they're working on it, that they're figuring it out, and that eventually that they'll be able to do it as second nature because they held themselves accountable to it, not because their coach got after them, but because they're look, I want to get better at this. I have a part to play in the success of my team. And so just, just kind of something to think about. But those three things I've just been thinking a lot about as a quiet warrior, and the quiet warrior journey and the quiet warrior cause and what we're doing and trying to figure those things out. It comes down to those three things, acceptance, accepting ourselves for who we are. Like, this is who we are. And I'm not saying being content and like not moving forward, but like accepting ourselves, accepting our whole self, mistakes and all. Like, this is who I am. And forgiving ourselves and going back, and like, if there's things that we cringe about or we don't like about ourselves, um we'll, that's part of it, but like accepting ourselves, right? Accepting ourselves. And then on part of that too is us accepting other people with the things that we might not like about them, right? Like in our group, in the quiet warrior group, accepting each other, even though we might have somebody that differs from us in political ideas or religious ideas or work ideas or whatever it is, accepting that, right? Being like, hey, you know what? That's how you think, and that's okay. And this is how I think. And somewhere we can, we can accept that, but being accepting of one another as human beings. That doesn't mean you have to agree. Acceptance isn't the same thing as agreement, right? Accepting is just accepting, hey, that's how you think. And you know what? And that doesn't mean you can't try to change the way somebody thinks, right? But we have to be respectful. But the point is being accepting, right? Accepting. But then the second thing, excuse me, second thing is being encouraging, right? Encouraging ourselves, encouraging those around us to be their best self. Live into their values, to really understand what they want to accomplish in their life and live into it more. And what are their values in life, and taking time to maybe figure that out. It might take time, and you might be like, how do I figure that out? And I we'll get into that in another podcast. And then the third thing is having accountability, just being accountable to yourself. You don't have to be accountable to anybody else, but to yourself, and just saying, look, this is my life. This is my responsibility, and I'm going to take care of it. And I'm going to accept both what happens that's good, and also accept what happens with bad. And I'm going to take accountability. And if it's something that I didn't want to have happen, if it's not something that I wanted, I'm going to figure out why it happened that way. And I'm going to change the system so that I can get what I did. Right? That's accountability. That's saying, look, this is my part of my part, and it's my responsibility to play my part. So guys, I hope that that's helpful. It's just something I've been thinking about. I love just sharing my thoughts about just different things. And again, that's just something I've been thinking a lot about, is like, with the Quiet Warrior and like who we are and what we're doing. And like, I like to just break things down, like try to analyze and break things down into ways that make sense to me. Hopefully they make sense to you. And lastly, you're probably like, why are you wearing a pink shirt? I thought the Quiet Warrior colors is pink. It's not, but two things. Like, my daughter loves pink, and Mother's Day is coming up. And so I made this Quiet Warrior shirt. I just put a Quiet Warrior patch transfer on this pink shirt, and maybe I should sell these for like Mother's Day or something. You can buy them, wear them to Mother's Day dinner or something like that, or Mother's Day breakfast, or whatever you guys do for Mother's Day. But yeah, and just quick plug for that, like, make sure you thank your mom. If nothing else, she gave you life. And so, yeah, make sure that you tell your mom you love her, and if she's passed on to the other side, I think it's a good time just to honor her and thank her and think about her, just the great things that our mothers do for us. So, Quiet Warriors, I hope you have a great day. I hope you have a great week, and we'll talk to you later. Okay, bye-bye.